Hello, it's Anthony Chadwick from the Webinar Vet, welcoming you to another episode of VETChat. I'm super excited to have Kale Flaspohler and Steve Hermann on the line, who are both from ProPartners Team. I was really pleased to meet them both in the AVMA conference at Austin in, I think it was June time.
It was.
So time is flying on. It's now October for those of you who are listening a bit later. And for those of you only listening, you're missing out on the fabulous studio that Steve and Kale have put together for this podcast. I'm in my front room and you can see all the African animals that are pencil drawings that I got when I went to Zimbabwe as a student. I know nobody's going to believe it, Steve and Kale, but back in the 80s, that just shows that I'm getting old, basically. But young at heart. Great to have you both on the show.
Hey, thanks for inviting us on. It's great to meet you down in Austin at the AVMA annual convention, which is a great thing for the United States, and great to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully this is the first of many conversations.
Yeah, no, definitely. And an interesting city. That is a warm and sticky place to live in all year round, Austin.
Yeah, it was hot. It was hot, and even come from mid-Missouri where it's humid. Down there, we're like, I don't know. This is a little.
It
much.
has to be one of the best food cities in the country, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the food there is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
Yeah.
But I must admit, I went for the run on the first day. They gave us a vest to wear as we did the run around town, and I was almost wringing it out at the end of the run. It was that humid. So,
They didn't
but a fascinating place.
Towel. You needed a towel, not a vest.
But it's great to speak to you both. I mean, perhaps before we start good and proper into the conversations, just for the benefit of people listening in or watching, Kale, do you want to introduce yourself, a bit on background, and then if you follow up, Stephen, and then we can crack on right into some of my questions.
That sounds great.
Absolutely. So I'm Kale Flaspohler. I'm born and raised here in Missouri, and I joined ProPartners Team during college, but right out of college I started full time. So I've been here 6-8 years now, however long that is. And so here I kind of do a lot of different things. I coach a lot of clients, and I also am the director of DVM Office, which is a bookkeeping / data visualization company where we work with a lot of our clients to help understand numbers and make numbers make sense and help add profit to a business.
You want to talk about me?
You get to
go on, Stephen.
What I do my hands? No. Hey, great to be on. And I said thanks already, but so ProPartners Team, I'm co-founder of. My business partner Wes Hinges started working with veterinarians in 2000 on the financial advising side. During the 2000s, after I graduated from the University of Missouri with a finance degree, went into our family business, Paul Supermarkets, and ran those and grew those. And in 2013, it was time for me to buy the stores, buy the businesses, but for what my dad wanted retirement-wise, what I want to do growth of the business-wise, they didn't pair up. And so I said, I want to go do my own thing. And I don't want to be riddled with a bunch of debt that might hamper the growth of his business. Not that my dad didn't deserve what he wanted. I understood that. So anyways, I went out, hitting the streets for a couple of years. What am I going to do? What these skills I have in the retail industry? I have skills in programming, automation, and really understanding, net profit, culture, client service, team building. And I met Wes. I was actually looking to take those skills to coach supermarkets. Well, there aren't a whole lot of independent supermarkets left. They're already pretty big. So I'm in his town, and I stopped in his office, and we hit it off and started talking about veterinarians in 2015. And so I started looking at what private practice owners are doing. And they're great people, number one. Veterinarians, independent veterinarians are great people. I mean, honest, salt of the earth people. So I was like, that's who I want to work with, are great people. And I have a passion for private businesses. I believe innovation comes from there. And for me, and able to have people impact in our towns, our state, the nation, I think big about these things. It's not just about just about us, about making an impact on a lot of people. And that's what we have today. Have today with working with over 70 independent locations, close to 50 practice owners. And, I look at that, I go, that's pretty cool because you take the average practice is 15 to 20, people there. And you take that 70, that's starting to get, that's 1,400 people that we're having an impact on. And you take that times, heck, it could be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, clients at that practice. We're having a people impact. So about me, I just believe in people. I believe that they need to have the tools to succeed, and animal health happens to be one of those places where it can make a difference in a person's life. Anthony, I think, as you know, that human-animal bond connection in our aging society, especially, that might be the only thing they have at home that gets them out walking. It might be a thing after the day of work where you come home and you're like, I had a bad day, but that dog is wagging its tail. And so it puts a smile on my face. So being on here today, my kid called me this morning. You forgot something. You got to run to school, and you're like, I don't have time to do this. Right? You get in that kind of like, Arr. You've got me a smile on my face. So I thank you for having us on today. I'm excited to be here with Kale too. Kale, he shorts himself. Kale's been an integral part of this business. He takes the bull by the horns. He believes in people impact. And he's a great asset for the team. We wouldn't be ProPartners Team without people like Kale. So it's great to have you on today, Kale.
I think that's so important, that whole idea of leverage, that, but also that we see, in some ways, just helping one person in one day is good enough. As a purpose-centered business,
Right.
It's great to be, to think big as well, but actually helping that individual person, that person, as you said, who's got a dog, their partner died 5 years previously. It's the only connection they've got left with, the partner is the dog, and that dog is really precious to them, and they get out because of it with the walk, etc. But when they take that dog to the practice, it's about the practice understanding how important that bond is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you hit that really well there. And of course, I think, as you said, the veterinary industry, I've been around it 30 plus years now. It's a friendly industry. So you've picked a good industry to get involved in.
Well, I wish I could say I picked it. It's like you make an opportunity or take an opportunity.
Yeah.
The opportunity
Yeah.
presented itself. So I feel fortunate. I feel fortunate that it landed. That's that luck thing, right? Where preparation meets up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, it's also important that as vets, I went to university, I qualified, and I was, pretty good at knowing how to treat a dog, a cat, a cow, etc. But I didn't have one lecture at university that said, maybe in 5 to 10 years, you've got your own business. This is how you're going to run it. That certainly wasn't part of the procedure. So being able to meet somebody like you, Steve, who obviously has worked in a supermarket and built that supermarket group up, we can learn so much. And I think it's a two-way street, because clearly you need to understand about the veterinary industry, and that's where talking to vets will really help you to understand that they're not objects, they're not things that you're going to buy off the shelf. It's much more deep than that. But actually bringing the two skill sets together is when the magic can happen, because as I say, I qualified as a vet, and I think I was okay as a vet. I was quite a good vet. Tactically, technically, I did a good job. But we're not taught how to run businesses, and this is where I think people like yourself, with a real understanding of numbers, and in some ways, although we say veterinary is different from running a supermarket, there's a lot of similarities as well, isn't there?
There are. It's taking care of people. You said it. It's understanding when that person comes in. And what I like about the supermarket and the veterinary industry, comparison wise, is that we sold bologna, right? Cheap bologna, spam, but we also sold filet mignon. We sold cheap wine, we sold expensive wine. We took care of it, and that's what a veterinarian is presented with. They have that person coming in that's may not be able to afford all these things. So the veterinarian really is tasked with being compassionate to that person's needs without taking on the empathetic pull down. Right? It's that's what is important. big part of it.
One of the most interesting dynamics that I've seen working with independent practice owners is this dynamic of, this is an animal that I want to help, right? But I'm a business owner, and that has to make sense financially because I have 20 people who rely on me with their salary and with their benefits to make sure that their families are fed. And so it's a very interesting and fine line to walk as the owner of, how do I serve the client and the patient while also making sure that I'm serving my team and myself.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because you can be as purpose centered as you want to be. If your practice doesn't make money, at some point you run out of money and you close down, and then you're not looking after anybody, are you?
Exactly.
It's funny you talk about, no one taught me about business in school. I got a finance degree, right? Fortunately, I've been working in a family business all my life. My dad
Mm.
rental property. I learned about lease agreements. In the late 80s, early 90s, I started taking information into Excel. So I learned about numbers from a young age. I don't know the business school teaches you business either. All kidding aside, right? How to run one, right? It teaches you how
Yeah,
to read the metrics and things, but how to run one. The only way to learn how to run a business, honestly, is to start one. uh,
yeah,
and then find a team that can help you on that path. Because I don't want to knock the veterinary school. You got a lot to learn. You got life in your hands, right?
yeah,
So to go, hey, we're going to teach you business at the same time. Let's
yeah,
let's focus on the veterinary medicine, and then hey, that's a great thing about commerce, right? It opens up for someone like our company to say, hey, we can go in and help you with your business to find that joy of owning a business, because there should be joy owning a business, not there's not stress, but that shouldn't be the thing you feel all the time, right? It should be that there should be joy in there on the stressful days that bring you up, and that comes with culture, right? How do you get the culture set right?
yeah. And I think it's if it's stressful all the time, then clearly you should go and do something else because you're not running it well. And we spend so much time in work that we've kind of got a right to enjoy it, but also to make sure that the team who work with us enjoy it as well, haven't we?
Mhm.
Yeah, Kale, that was spot on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's one of those things, we spend so much of our time and emotion, and as a business owner, even when you're not there, you're thinking about it. And so,
Yeah,
better be a place that we
Yeah.
enjoy. And part of the joy that you come back to is I was on with a client yesterday, and they're like, "Hey, my practice manager's been doing great. I'm going to send her to the Four Seasons for 3 days with my credit card." It's being able to do things for people like that
mm,
still do make sense for the bottom line, because at the end of the day, business is here to produce a profit.
It is. Yeah,
So
that's the thing that veterinarians struggle with, is that word profit,
yeah,
for sure. Seems like a guilt word.
there is guilt associated with the profit. Yeah.
I remember, when I had my own practice and people like John Sheridan, who was a real sort of leader in practice management, um, passed away a few years ago, but a great innovator in that space. Obviously, always looking towards America. You guys are ahead in many areas. And then Alan Robinson with his Fort Dodge indices, where you could see where you were, against another 150 practices and so on. Um, but a lot of these practices, were not making, as you've just said, the profit that they perhaps deserved or wanted. What are the areas that you think are the easy wins? So obviously, you're running pro partner teams. You're going into practice. A practice says, you know what, I'm struggling with something, because of course nobody comes to you if they're doing okay. If they're in a sort of middle of the road, doing okay, everything's going fine. If they don't want to grow, or if they're not in a mess, they're probably not going to come to you. So I would imagine a lot of practices come and say, I'm scratching my head here. I'm trying my best. I'm working really hard, but the money isn't coming in, or if it is coming in, we're not making a profit at the end of the month. How do you tell us a little bit about the rationale of somebody comes to you, or you meet somebody at a conference, maybe Austin, and how that relationship develops, and what do you offer? Explain your service that perhaps moves those people into a much better place. And if you've got some examples, that would be fabulous. Obviously, anonymized, that's fine.
No, absolutely. I think um, so. we just got out of our executive team meeting. Kale, myself, my wife, who's our chief learning officer, she's Lauren Herman, PhD, and then my business partner, Wes. And so we can, and why I want to say that, because we continually look at how do we improve our process for that reason, to bring them on for get their mindset right. And,
Yeah.
it depends how the person comes to you, what's on fire. It's kind of like, I think you're asking what typically is on fire that makes the biggest difference, and I think two things. Well, I'm gonna say pricing.
I'm going to say pricing too.
Yeah, pricing, right? It's the you haven't kept up with the cost of goods sold. You haven't kept up with your service pricing because you've been so busy from this COVID,
Yeah.
United States, that COVID stimulus, not only that money the government sent out, the people stimulus. I'm talking about that went to the veterinary, that because the animals, all those things, they got overwhelmed, and so for 3-4 years, and you should be 25% more than you were 3-4 years ago, but even then, you probably still weren't keeping up with pricing, right? You're still charging $40 for an exam, and you should be at 80, right? And so that's one of the biggest things, that can help to relief, because you need cash flow going, right? Number one thing's cash flow, but the mind, right? Talk about mindset on that.
Yeah. So I mean, we had one client that comes to us, and this is a kind of an example that I see more often than not. But we had somebody come to us that said, "I just bought a practice 3 years ago. I'm making more money than I have ever seen in my life. I've already paid off the practice, and I have never been more unhappy. What do I need to do?" And so that one is so much more nuanced than just profit, because we can
Right.
fix profit to a point. I mean, we can say you need to adjust this, that, and the other thing, and pull some levers, and profit
Yeah.
comes. But it's like, how do we make that fun again, and how do we make that person enjoy what they're doing? And really, I think it comes back to focusing somebody and really coming back to, what do you want? Why did you do this? Why did you do this at all?
Mhm.
What was the end goal when you signed on the papers? What was said? I want to own this practice because it's going to do this for me. It's going to do this for my community. What is it? And sometimes it's just a refocusing and having somebody like us to call when things are going wrong or going right.
Yeah, it's a
It's a phone call.
well, it's on the and pricing is just is a why we bring that up, because it's not everything we do, but it's pretty important, right? The issue is too, though, is what Kale just said. It's giving that veterinarian the confidence to make that change, to give the story, to go, hey, you're not you're not unlike the other veterinarians we work with. Most of them are like, I can't raise my prices because I'm going to get yelled at. And you go, you know what? You're going to get yelled at if you don't raise your prices, because there's going to be one or two people that say you raised your prices even though you didn't. So, but all kidding aside, the data we have on, when I say raising prices, we have analysis we do for the market demographics, right? What's realistic in your community, all those things. So it's not just a blanket raise your price. But we look at it and go, you're not going to have but one or two people complain. They're going to complain anyways. And when people make those few price changes, they, like, oh, okay, I can do this, right? And you get that, what Kale said, you get that confidence that we have someone we can call on that can help us with opportunity or with issues. And so it's really you said it earlier, it's understanding, as a veterinarian side, that client coming through, we got to do the same thing. We have to understand the veterinarian, what makes you happy. We're not going to just make an assumption of what makes you happy. It's like, why did you do this?
Yeah, why'd you buy it?
Yeah.
And just refocus, and maybe a lot of times that, like, a reset on your mindset will help that a lot. But I think the other thing that we do a lot, or why someone would come to us, is if they're thinking about getting into business or getting out of business, because those two situations and processes are very complex and very stressful. And if you've never done it before, it's daunting. It's a lot of money for people. And so we've built processes that are phenomenal to do both of those things. If you want to get into business, you want to build one, you want to buy one, whatever, we've got a great process for that. And then getting out also on the back end, is it's like, hey, how do I transition out of ownership successfully? Is another, while maximizing value, understanding how financing works, all those different things, are things that we've really built our business to help with, and are probably my favorite, to be honest. I love getting in and out of business. I think it's the most rewarding for me. When we sign, either getting in or getting out, it's a blessing to get to help people with those kind of transitions in life.
How, Steve, would you say the majority of people that you help, do you find that they're running the practice quite well with things like accounts, monthly accounts, management accounts. They know where they're going with this. Stock control, obviously we hold a lot of money on our shelves.
Right.
Are these areas that you also get involved with? And what's your feeling of the general quality of what people are doing, maybe in those two areas of stock and actually having accounts that you can look at and make sense of?
Yeah, and so you're talking about we would call it inventory here,
Yeah,
right? And so real quick though, we have we continue to develop and build the full suite of services, consultation, coaching around all business aspects inside of veterinary practice. From what does it smell like when you walk in the front door in your practice, right? Literally to what are they seeing when they leave. Like it's throughout. But to that inventory question, there's some people. Actually, the person that Kale was talking about earlier seemed like they had it under control, and then it kind of got, not it wasn't as good a control. And the problem is on their finances is reporting it the way they'll go into the new year. They bought a lot of inventory last year, right? So on their books in the new year, they look really profitable. So they get this kind of like they don't know. So when I say, is there an inventory system? We go in and help with that to understand that you don't need 5 of the same thing, right? And we try to go there. There are standards you follow. I know you have doctors that are like, oh, we need to carry these things. I recommend those. Well, if you already have something that does the same thing, it's your business. You should help that doctor understand we don't need to carry
yeah,
the same generic in 4 different brands, right? Uh, Little simple things like that matter. And then what Kale's done with our business DVM office, which we have automated bookkeeping, and it takes human interaction, no question about it.
Oh yeah.
But Kale's director of that, and that takes everything in the AHA chart of accounts, so you can actually see by revenue, laboratory, right, versus laboratory, injectables versus injectables, expenses and sales. So then we can start getting an idea really where they're at and where those issues are at. So no, that's grocery business. I mean, that is where the big skill set comes in, because in the grocery business, I mean, my goal was I would walk in and say, here's your budget for the next 2 weeks for ordering, and you need to hit them because we project out the revenue and those things. And so that's the things we work on with our clients, to be more proactive than reactive. Let's get a system going, and also benchmark off what the gold standard on cost of goods sold, sitting down there at 25% of revenue in the United States. How do we get you to 25% revenue on cost of goods sold, so you start generating that profit? And it's an inventory control and pricing.
brilliant. We were talking before about insurance, and obviously, insurance in Scandinavia is like most people are insured. In the UK, it's probably somewhere in between 40-50%. In America, it's really low. And yet, on the human side, pretty much everybody has to be insured in America. And we have a national health service. So, where do you see that coming in? And actually, do you encourage people, practitioners, to promote insurance, or do you not think it's that important?
Wow, you brought up the big question about insurance, right? And you compare, talk about human healthcare, United States. Um, the way the system works is is too complicated. Um, I think what's happened in human healthcare that I don't want to see happen so I want to start here. Human healthcare is driven by the insurance company. Okay,
Hmm.
just is. It's driven by that, and pharmacy, the PBMs, the pharmacy benefit managers that regulate. The price of medicine you get in the UK is way less for the things we developed here in the United States. We might be paying $1,000 a pill, and you're paying 10, right? Um, so that is a very nuanced question to go on the health insurance side for pets. My concern is that the same thing will happen to veterinarians, which back to human, you don't see many independent doctors anymore. They're at universities, religious organizations, right? Or just big
Yeah.
corporations. Now I will say, when it works right, California actually has a good state-run health system where people agree upon those things. If we could do that in veterinary medicine, I think we need to look at, though, more so as helping those that can't afford care for their animal, recognizing that animal has a health benefit to
Mm.
that individual owner, right? I think that, and Dr. Michael Blackwell, do you know him? He's out of Tennessee. He has Align Care, ALIGN Care, and it's a not-for-profit structure where it helps those that are on government assistance in the United States to get care at the practice. So the practice gets paid, right? But that person able to not go into debt for care.
Mm.
They're working on it. So when I get into insurance, man, we don't have enough time for me to go through that, because I go back to the days of the 90s as a business owner in the 90s, where health insurance was at back then on the human side, understanding it to where it is today. I've seen the whole 30-year to where we are. And Michael Blackwell said it really well in the human healthcare. That's where I get my ideas from on that side too, is that he said human healthcare, they're driving the bus. If the veterinarians can drive the healthcare, the health insurance for pets, great. But if you start taking Nationwide and the big companies with Nationwide just stop care, right? Like, I was getting $1,000 a month of care from your insurance that I was having to pay. You drop me, and now I've got $1,000 a month bill for my animal, right?
One thing of that too, that I think about, so personally, I guess I'll take
Yeah.
it from like as a consumer, would I buy health insurance or would I not? Is similar to dental insurance. Whether you have it or not is great, but it's kind of that cost benefit factor of like, if I have a problem, I'd like to have it, but as long as I don't have a problem, it's probably cheaper to just pay for the care than it is to pay for the insurance.
Right.
And so it's kind of the person, like the risk, or do I want to be covered? Do I not want to be covered? How do I feel
Mm.
at it? And so it's kind of a personal choice. But for me, I generally, on pet health insurance, I would roll the dice on that and say, I'm gonna cover it and see and hope that nothing bad happens, because I'll come out ahead in the end if nothing bad happens.
Well, and so analytically, we've run the numbers on multiple health, pet insurance plans, excuse me. And if you take that money to stash off to the side of what, annual pet care is $300-$400, for a healthy animal, let's just say, plus preventatives, it may be 600. So let's say that in the pet health insurance is going to cost you $2,000 or $3,000. Well,
Yeah.
if you just stuff that money off to the side and never use it, you're ahead. If you stuff that money off to the side and use it, you're still fine. So that's the problem with the insurance right now, is that there's not a broad enough, pool of money to make that affordable across the way. And with the way the capitalist society for health insurance, it turns to the greed side of capitalism, not consumer focused.
Yeah.
You're driving that insurance for profit. When that insurance is driven for profit for that insurance company, that's where you get that disparity.
No, it's a really good point. And I think it's also about then levels of risks that people are prepared to take. And I think America is probably a more entrepreneurial country than the UK or, some of Europe. So it's about what level of risk are you prepared to take before you go, no, I need insurance. And maybe your level of risk is higher than it would be in some of the European countries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you got a lot of people that, have grown up in smaller towns on farms where,
The
bullet,
dogs,
bullet, it's still a thing, right? On the
there's a
farm.
lot of rural communities.
Yes.
The animals are
Yeah.
that as like a companion, in the
Right.
house, right? And so, the level of care that you're going to get there, it's like I'm not going to pay for health insurance because, the dog is here to work cattle or whatever. And actually, those dogs
Yes.
are a lot. It's a
Those dogs
terrible
are worth a
example.
lot.
Those dogs are worth like thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Maybe you would have insurance on that one, but
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, the risk is probably, different here than it is to. I'll roll the dice if I think I'm
Yeah.
going to come out in the wash on the end on the money side.
Don't take that bullet comment like I'm a guy that I'm not doing that. All right. But you got to look at the whole spectrum to respect people's.
Yeah. And that happens in the UK as well, in farms, in rural areas where an animal is worth an amount. And if the veterinary bill is going to be much heavier than that, then obviously the farmer will almost certainly dispatch the animal himself or herself.
Yeah.
And perhaps just to finish off, because I think it was interesting. We talk with the same language. But as I think it was Churchill said, we're the English and the Americans are separated by a common language. And I think we before the podcast were talking about football and soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, who are the big teams, the big soccer teams and football teams in the office at a Pro Partners team? Because I know you've got somebody from England working in the office, and of course, sport is internationalizing because I think we also have American football playing at Wembley sometimes as well.
Yeah, Lindo, you're gonna have to maybe sub in on this one. Who are our teams? Who's?
Lindo's holding it
Oh,
up.
we got
right now.
Manchester City
Man,
and Newcastle.
So
Sorry.
Lindo's from South Africa, so he's he's on the same. I mean, he and Sam from Cambridge they have good fun time.
But it is fun. We do have the Chiefs here right in our backyard for American football, which have won the Super Bowl several years in a row here. So it's been fun to have that an hour and a half away.
Which Sam went to a Chiefs game for the first time last year, which was like one of the coldest football games.
It was one of the coldest days of the year. It was negative like 10
playoff game, and he was amazed by the atmosphere.
Yeah,
at that. There's just they're different atmospheres. They're both fun, but it's different.
Absolutely.
We don't get the cold like that, but at Liverpool, where I watch the football, the soccer, as you would say, the wind comes through the stands, and I must admit, even though it might only be low single figures centigrade,
right?
Nevertheless, several layers and gloves and everything on and hats. So the better time is around now, but just before. But then it starts getting cold here in November, December. So you need to wrap up warm if you come to the soccer in the north of England.
Well, sounds like you said you're Liverpool, so we got Manchester and Newcastle. So we might you got some rivalries going on, don't we?
We definitely. Well, they're all northern teams. So it's all good stuff. But yeah, definitely Liverpool and Manchester City have been fighting out for leagues for the last few years as well.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Absolutely. The inclement weather here makes games, the atmosphere way better. Like the snow, the cold, everything. It just makes the atmosphere 10 times more enjoyable, in my opinion. Some people hate it, but a lot of times it brings out the craziness in people. It's fun. It's a good time.
Well, I hope the Chiefs have a successful season as well. And certainly it's been really, really interesting. I think the more we chat together and understand, I mean, in the veterinary industry, I think wherever is similar, but there are some differences. The work you're doing, I think, is great because we also know that it's one of the best jobs in the world, in my opinion, but people leave, etc. And that's sometimes because of low pay, pressure, etc.
Right.
If we can make it so that it's a profitable industry at the same time, still serving, the people and the animals that come to us, then if you're not having to worry about where the next meal comes from or how you're going to heat the house, then obviously it's much more easy to concentrate on the job and enjoy the job, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Amen.
We finish with our vision statement says a vibrant future for veterinary medicine. That's what we're doing here at the end of the day is how do we that path to the vibrant future of veterinary medicine. We happen to focus on the private practice owner. And so we have a great process to help them find that for sure.
Fantastic. Stephen and Kale, it's been so good speaking to you. I'm hoping I might catch up with you at Vetch at some point in the next year, because I know you're not going to VMX.
Yeah.
But continue with the good work. It's been great to speak, and thank you once again for taking time in your busy schedules to come on VetChat.
Thank you for your time. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for the invitation. We appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. And listen, thank you everyone for listening. I hope to see you on a podcast or a webinar very soon. Take care. Goodbye, and have a great rest of the day wherever you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you.